If you're making $25 an hour, should you be terrified? Well, according to this viral TikToker that goes by Digital Solutions, the answer is yes. He shares a list of expenses a single American spends in a month and why $25 an hour is not enough. And I'm going to be reviewing these expenses in my new series, Budget Roast, where I review people's budgets and talk about what I personally would change about it. Now, let's dive right in. Now, I'm not arguing that people probably should be making more than $25 an hour, and that is not necessarily the goal people should stop at. But I'm here to show that there are more options when you're making $25 an hour instead of being terrified. And of course, this doesn't apply to every single person out there. Everyone's situation is different, but this is how it would work if I were in that position as a single person living alone, and from the expenses I've seen and where you can save. So here are the expenses that Digital Solutions brought up, and going down this list, you'll see that rent has a cost of $1,600 a month, groceries $500, electric $117, water $45, vehicle payments. And so you'll really see through this list, it is what a typical American spends individually. This is pretty typical. There's car payments in there, and the total comes out to over $3,200 a month. And, talking with many people, this is the truth of what they spend. But not everybody has to spend this much. And this is where I want to break it down into a little bit of a budget roast here. So let's start up at the top. Rent, $1,659 per month individually. For this cost, I think that if you're living individually and making $25 an hour, frankly, you can't afford this rent. This rent, if you're living in a medium cost of living place, provides you a lot. You could get a multiple bedroom apartment, or even a mortgage with multiple bedrooms with this cost. I live 20 minutes outside a major metropolitan area on the East Coast, and I pay less than this for a two-bedroom mortgage. So there's definitely ways you can save here. In my opinion, I think that if you're making only $25 an hour, you can't afford this rent. Get a roommate, get somewhere where you could still be close to areas like I've rented apartments for $700, very close to the city center, living with one other person. And we just had to share one bathroom. And when you're making that low, sometimes, it might be necessary to make sacrifices like that. Now, if you're living in places like San Francisco or New York City, I would say this price, you can't really get a lot at this price, but it's still doable. I think you can find a roommate and get a lower price. So I would say maybe you could spend tops $800 or $900 in rent instead of $1,600. So let's cut this in half to $800. Groceries, $500. I would say this is a little high. Definitely a little high. Now, I didn't see any other expenses on food or dining or even entertainment, so it's possible that this could be rolled into groceries as well. But again, if you're looking to save money, this really helps if you know how to cook or love cooking. It will save you a lot of money. So this can go down to even $300. I would say you could even find ways to make it go down more. I've heard people go down to even $100 by finding really creative ways to save on groceries. And again, this is for someone who doesn't have like strict dietary restrictions and just is able to save some on there. So we'll leave it at $300. I would say my average grocery bill nowadays, making six figures, is $300. And so electric, $117. I think it definitely depends where you live. I would say $117 is quite a lot. In my 2-bedroom place, I have spent at most maybe $80, maybe $90 in the wintertime in electric. So I would say this is pretty high. But like when I don't have to use AC or heat, I spend maybe top $60. So let's put this down to $80. Water. I would say $45 a month is pretty reasonable. I spend about $40 to $50 a month. I get a bill every 3 months and it comes to around $150. So that one is, I would say, actually on the lower side. So we'll keep that at $45. Vehicle payments. So vehicle payments are definitely very common. Someone would say even normal with Americans today. But you can really, I would say, if you're really able to pay that off, like getting that $0 vehicle payment, or even selling your car and purchasing one for cash so you don't have any payments whatsoever, is ideal. $400 if you do have vehicle payment, that is pretty average. I don't think it's like high or low, but in an ideal situation, you would be paying $0. So that one's kind of iffy, but if you were to put it with no payment and just buy a really cheap used car that gets you from point A to B and pay it all in cash, you would have $0 payment. Vehicle insurance, $130. I find that quite pricey. I would say if there's a vehicle payment, I would say usually average is maybe $100 per month. That's around what I pay. So let's cut $30 from that, and that will be $100. Okay, so fuel at $4 per gallon. Now this one can be also tricky. I would say $200 is actually not that much. I did spend less for my own vehicle. That was, it wasn't any gas guzzler or anything. And gas was around like $3 to $4 then, but I spent about $120 when I was commuting to work every day, commuting about 20 miles each way. So it took me like usually 45 minutes with traffic to an hour each way to get home and to work and home. So I usually ended up spending $120-ish myself. But I do understand that gas prices have risen and, some people will be driving more. So we could just keep this to $200 per month. Now, this is also another controversial place between the rent, because a lot of people that pay that huge high price rent live right next to their work or close to their work. So I know a lot of people near the city, they don't even have cars, they don't even use cars. So like they might not spend really anything for gas. So that's something that's some of the levers you can pull as well. Like if you live closer, your rent might increase, but maybe you don't have to have a car. Or if you live further away, you have to commute more and you have to spend more on your car. $200 again is probably the median. All right, cell phone, $127 per month. I would say this seems very, very high for one person. This might seem reasonable for, I would say, a family of 4. and you all were sharing the bill and you all were under one bill of $127. When you're making as low as $25 an hour or less, you can definitely get your cell phone bill to as much as even $15 a month. I know Ting starts at like $6 to $10 a month. I used that for some time. Mint starts at $15, and then I think I ended up going with a $20 per month, where you get enough data, you get all the calls and texts you need. You're not really losing much service, and there's Wi-Fi everywhere, so you can always use Wi-Fi. And so I think this is a ridiculous amount, and I'm gonna put it to $20. Internet, $45. That's pretty cheap. The cheapest internet I found for myself was $39.99 per month. It got what I needed to get done. I felt that, especially if living alone without having to share internet with other people, $45 was enough individually. If you live with others and have to share internet, maybe the total cost might raise, but $45 is reasonable, so we'll keep it at that. And streaming, I would get rid of this completely. Like, put a huge just cross mark through this. You really don't need streaming when there's so many free services out there. If you have a library card, you could use Hoopla Digital or Libby apps, and they have so many great movies, music, and a lot of good books to read, and you really don't need like subscription services, and you don't even need to replace it with cable or TV. If you want to watch TV, this is what I do currently. I bought a $50 antenna. Remember those olden days where we were watching broadcast TV with the antennas on top? I bought a $50 antenna and just like posted it against my wall, and I'm still able to watch live sports. Right now it's football season. You'll still be able to catch all the football games for free. You'll be able to watch a Super Bowl for free with an antenna. You don't need a streaming service. So I'm very opinionated about that this is just extra stuff, and you could still find ways to get the entertainment you need, have fun, and it'll be free. So $0. Trash. So I don't remember any time I've ever had to pay for trash. Now, maybe it's unique to where I live in the States. Maybe some other places or districts in the United States, this might be a common thing you have to pay for. But $25 for trash, usually that's rolled into your rent or your mortgage, or not your mortgage, or your HOA fees. And so this is pretty, I would say, it is probably would be $0 for me. But there's a whole section in this which I think is missing. It's like a miscellaneous entertainment section. And I do believe that everybody should give some leeway to themselves when budgeting, because it's really hard. Even for me who loves budgeting, it's really hard to stick completely strictly to a budget. So you could call it miscellaneous, you could call it fun money, entertainment. I would give like maybe a cushion of $100. So even though, or like maybe a cushion of $50 if you're really wanting to scrimp. So even though I'm crossing out trash and streaming, because of those, fluctuations month over month, you can put in like a miscellaneous. So to give a little bit of a buffer of $50. And so maybe some might say like just leave out the miscellaneous, and you could do that too. But let's just total it there with like the $50 buffer and see what we get. So instead of $3,285, you are left with a total of $1,640. Isn't that amazing? You saved well over half of what this budget was before. And you might not believe your eyes. I think you'll see a lot of the savings came from the rent. I really do believe when you're making as low amount as that, you really should be looking for more affordable rent. Where we took off $200 from groceries, got rid of that vehicle payment, making that paying off your vehicle, buying it in cash so you don't have that vehicle payment makes a huge difference to you, especially with an average of $400 per month. And so that is where we land. And also, of course, $100 off the cell phone bill. That was ridiculously high. I think many would agree. So do you agree with this budget? Do you think this is feasible? Would you be able to live off this yourself? And how would you feel if you were making $25 an hour? And do you make $25 an hour? And maybe you could share your budget as well. Or maybe you even make less than $25 an hour and you're able to make the things work, or you're able to even spend less than what I put here. I would love to know and hear your stories as well and your experiences with this. And I actually experienced this myself. I started off my career making maybe not that much more than $25 an hour. And I think that when you're making that much, I believe you don't have to be terrified, but you can have options. And maybe you don't want to strive to making only $25 an hour, but what if you find yourself making that much money or falling back to make that much money? This is to show that hopefully you could see that you don't have to be terrified. You have options, so you don't have to freak out. Another thing I want to point out is that I find that a lot of people that I've talked to that freak out about money or are really worried about not making enough or their financial circumstances, they tend to make the stupidest decisions. They tend to make really risky decisions to try to make as much money as fast as possible. And so this is what I'm trying to share, that you don't have to freak out if you're not making as much money as maybe you want to, because if you have a plan, you can make it work, at least temporarily, until you get that next job that might be paying more. And so I went from making a little bit over $25 an hour to now making almost $200,000 an hour. Now, a year, $200,000 a year. And so if you want to hear about my journey from making $25 an hour to almost $200,000 a year, watch out for my next video as well. And if you want to see how I budgeted in real life with making actually less than $25 an hour, go ahead and watch my last video. That's where I talked about when I was unemployed during 2020 and I was living on less than $3,000 a month of income, and I was actually able to contribute to my savings. I didn't take out of my savings at all. So if you want to learn more about that and my actual real life budgeting I did, making way under $25 an hour, go watch my last video. Thanks for watching.